Welcome. My name is Stephanie Woodard, and I am honored to present the second of three Sunday videocasts during which Native American guests discuss their community's vital issues and innovative solutions for a better post-pandemic future. Last week, we learned about leading-edge, yet traditional, tribal food and housing projects. That videocast is still posted to the Facebook page of our presenter, Staten Island Out Loud. It is a community reading and performance project that offers these events and many others for the Big Read, a National Endowment for the Arts series produced in partnership with Arts Midwest. This year, the Big Read is a celebration of an American sunrise by United States Poet Laureate Joy Harjo, who is Muskogee Creek. Today, we're about to hear about exciting youth programs from Julie Garreau of the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe in South Dakota and from Tahlia and Natachu at the Pueblo of Zuni in New Mexico. These are stellar examples of ways Indigenous people keep their youngsters engaged with culture and community and busy and happy while still following anti-pandemic measures. What Julie and Tahlia will tell us is newsworthy and painful, because tribes have struggled to simply hold on to their children since the 1800s. The general public became aware of this just a few months ago when the remains of more than 1,500 Native children were found in unmarked and mass graves at Canadian boarding schools. Many more are known to have been buried on the grounds of similar schools in the United States. Both countries forced Native children to attend these institutions, essentially prison camps, until the second half of the 20th century. The goal was to assimilate the children by beating their languages and cultures out of them. During each of our videocasts, I'll also read an excerpt of my book, American Apartheid, the Native American Struggle for Self-Determination and Inclusion. I'm an investigative reporter, and in the book, I chronicle my 20-plus years of reporting human rights issues and cultural continuity in Indigenous communities. We're going to start with photos of the Cheyenne River Youth Project's recent Red Can Graffiti Jam. We are now on a video call with Julie Garreau of the Cheyenne River Youth Project, also known as CRYP. Julie, viewers just saw photos of CRYP's Red Can Graffiti Jam, which occurred this past summer. Can you tell us what a graffiti jam is and how yours got started and became so big, so popular, so multifaceted?
The Red Can Graffiti Jam is, I think, kind of new to Indian country and new to our community for certain. But graffiti jams have been held, you know, for decades, all around the country, all around the world. And typically, from what I've learned, graffiti jams are when graffiti writers, artists come together and they're kind of trying to one up each other. They're trying to outdo each other, really making statements about who they are as graffiti artists. Well, at the Cheyenne River Youth Project, the graffiti jam's a little different. It's still a jam. It's still all about graffiti and art. The difference is it's really so much more about community development and uplifting the community, which I find really, really beautiful. So the artists who come to the Cheyenne River Youth Project and come to our community are artists who are willing to leave their ego at the door, come on in. They're part of something very different, very special. I heard one of the artists talking about the graffiti jam, and he said it's just so different because they're under one roof. They're under that roof. They're sharing. They're talking. They're of course they're sharing techniques and you know, you know, things that they've done in the past year, artwork. But they're also they're just kind of talking about the art they're going to create in our community, how they're going to help us tell our stories, how they're going to bring that artwork to us, and it's really, really beautiful because what happens is they become part of a family. They become part of something very special, very definitely about art and culture. But they're people who are willing to bring it kids into when they're creating. It's 100% about lifting up our community, and so it's a little different. And then the other thing that's different is that a lot with graffiti artwork, it goes up and there's a real understanding that it goes back down. Well, with the Cheyenne River Youth Project and what we're doing, it is artwork that stays up for a while, and when it's time to bring it down, the community is not quite ready to see it go. But I think now, after 7 years, they're getting used to the idea that, artwork will go up and then it will come down. And even though it's really beautiful, they're more than willing to kind of expect the new greatest thing to happen. So we're all learning, we're all evolving, we're all growing in this very special kind of um, area.
Art is a very big focus of CRYP. And during the Red Cam Graffiti Jam, you had the groundbreaking for a new art building that you're planning. And can you tell us how the architects plan to both support a wide variety of arts and Lakota culture? And I understand that their supporting of Lakota culture doesn't only have to do with imagery and particular media, but it also has to do with the building's energy use. Everything about the building is going to be appropriate.
So, the Shine River Youth Project, we've been in operation for almost 33 years. I think October will be 33 years. And throughout those years, I think the foundation of everything that we've tried to do is to just present some options and opportunities for our young people. We're a Native community, we're a very rural community, we're an impoverished community. So finding the resources to bring those opportunities to our young people has been a real struggle. But everything that we do, I think, very much reflects the needs of our community. We look at our kids, we listen to our kids, and that's what we try to do. Is we try to grow in the direction that they need us to grow. So we've been doing all sorts of things all these years, including the arts from our in our youth center for ages 4 to 12-year-olds. Arts have always been a part of it. Even earlier, before we built the new youth center, arts has always been a piece of everything that we do. Kids are creative. They like to create, they like to draw, they like to cut things, they like to do all. So what we try to do is just make this place a home for where they could create. So when we built the new teen center, we specifically included an art studio, and within months, we'd already outgrown that small space. And we always thought we needed to do more. We always do. And we have a strong social enterprises component. We have native wellness, where we have a fitness center, and we have a gymnasium. We have all these different opportunities. We have a farm to table cafe called the Kea Cafe. We have a gift shop, online store. So we have all these different pieces where we bring kids into the operation of them, or we use them as learning opportunities and that type of thing. Well, the arts had just been one of those pieces where we just needed to go further, and we needed to evolve it. So the interesting thing that, and even me, I'm learning more about art in relation to our in relationship to our Lakota culture. And I learned right away that there was no actual Lakota word for art, which I found very, very interesting, because art and culture are so the same thing. So I think people looking in might look at our regalia, might look at the artwork, or what they call artwork, and say, wow, that's really beautiful, it's great art. But really, in the end, it's very much about it's life, it's livelihood, it's actually something that Lakota people were in danger of losing, and they had to fight really hard to bring it back and to maintain those connections to, whether it's regalia or ceremony or language or whatever it is. They had to work very hard to keep it. So what we want to do at the Cheyenne River Youth Project now, that is build a new, well, first of all, we created something called the Waniatu Wawapi Lakota Youth Arts and Culture Institute. And within the Institute, we have daily arts and crafts programming. We have camps, art camps. We have art internships. We even have an art fellowship. In 2015, we dedicated the Waniatu Wawapi Art Park, which was a direct result of all the work that we've been doing with the graffiti and teaching the kids about can control and all these really great things. And we just wanted to create a space that It has a walking path, so definitely you can, have fitness, and has a small stage for performances. But the biggest thing is you're completely surrounded by art, and kids can come in, they can paint. Typically, people use spray paint, but that's where we host the graffiti jam every year. So now we're building this art center. It's about 9,000 square feet. It will be located directly in the middle of the art park, which will be really grand because you'll be able to come outside and see all the art parks surrounding it. And the building itself is net zero. And I don't really understand all the pieces of that, but we will produce more energy than we will use. And I'm really excited about that because you hear about the conversations all over about sustainability and how we need to take care of Mother Earth and all those sorts of things. And I agree with all of that. So I thought, well, if we're going to talk about it, then we need to do it. And from what I am understanding, we might be one of the only or the only building that's done that in South Dakota. So I'm really looking forward to that aspect of it because I think it also teaches community. I think it teaches kids about what's possible. But within that space, we will have exhibition spaces. We will have an office and a gift shop and a small kitchen. But we'll also have a place for photography, screen printing, just a big general room for art making. We will have a pottery studio. We will have all these different spaces for kids, which in the end is, again, like I mentioned earlier, options and opportunities. That's what our young people need. So that, you hear kids talking about, well, when I grow up, I'm going to be this or I'm going to be that. And, this is just the Cheyenne River Youth Project is just trying to say, hey, this is an idea. Here's an idea. Maybe, and, who knows what goes from there. We're definitely planting seeds, and that's why we have a garden. That's why we have the art park. It's why we have such great youth center spaces. Within them are libraries, and there's a computer lab and dance studio and gymnasium, but these are all things about trying to give kids ideas about what I can be when I grow up. But at the foundation of all of that is reminding them and strengthening them that you are Lakota, and it is a good thing to be Lakota. We are raising children now that did not grow up in that era of um, where where it was bad to be Lakota, or you had to hide it, or boarding schools, or where they tried to take it away from you or beat it out of you, or there were laws stopping you from praying. These are kids who are growing up now where being Lakota is a good thing and is something to be proud of. And you can wear your braids and you can speak your language and you can go to ceremony, and that's pretty great. So we just launched another one of our internships. So we have 5 internships where young people can participate in the arts, native wellness, social enterprises. And then we also have food sovereignty, which is learning about indigenous foods and cooking and gardening and that kind of thing. So we're going to even go a little bit further. And a piece of all those internships is Lakota culture. How is that connected, right? Every single one of those things. But then we're going to add a Lakota culture internship, and where we specifically focus on teaching the kids about from the very basics. And I don't know if I call it sharing or just reminding them of who they are, but it's like teaching them, helping them understand, why do we smudge? Why do we offer a spirit plate? Why do we go to sweat lodge? Why is there a Sundance? And all those sorts of things, because again, that's, what do you want to be? What do you want to do when you grow up? Who do you want to become? And at the foundation of every single thing that we do in our community, and all of indigenous communities, should be culture and language and ceremony. That should be a part of everything. It should not be something that has to be left out or taken away. And I think that's one of the saddest things in South Dakota is how they're working to continue to erase Lakota culture and the First Nations of this country. And it's really unsettling because, why not? Why wouldn't you want to learn about the people of your state, of your communities, or your neighbors? And so that's a part of it that's really unsettling for me, is that we're still in this, I guess, fight, if you will, to acknowledge the first people of this country. And it's really unsettling. And I think that's a message to our kids, and we have to fight that message. We absolutely have to.
Mhm. And much of what you do at Cheyenne River has to do with supporting culture and allowing kids to understand that that is who they are and that's what makes them able to do all the kinds of things that they may to succeed at all the kinds of things they may wish to do. But also, a lot of what you do at Cheyenne River is really, really essential. It, it's about ensuring that kids get enough food to eat. Your garden is not just a way to learn about garden techniques. It literally produces food that keeps people alive. And can you talk about, at the beginning of our conversation, you mentioned that this is a very rich and beautiful community with many meaningful connections, but it's also an impoverished community, and there are things that have to be done to solve that issue as well.
Absolutely. It's interesting because, um, the Cheyenne River Youth Project has always been about 100% for the kids. But we also understood that supporting the family was a really critical piece as well, because if we support the family, we continue to support our kids. So we do have a piece of the Cheyenne River Youth Project that is focused on helping the family. And whether it's winter coats, boots distributions, or it's the winter solstice toy drive, or whether it's the um, food distributions that we do, that we've done a lot more of during COVID, or whether it's daily after school meals and snacks for the young people. Taking care of the immediate needs of our families has always been a really important part of what we've done, because when you're a family or you're a single mom or a single dad and you're trying to provide for your children and budgets are tight, times are hard, just a little bit of a break can just ease you so much. It can just lift like so much from your heart and the burden, and it's emotionally so hard on you. So just giving people just a little bit of break, who knows what that's going to do for a family. And sometimes it comes down to just being hungry. Sometimes it comes down to just being needing a pair of shoes. Or during the holidays, just making sure that this young person gets a few gifts that they can have, just like every other kid in the world is it wants to have. So sometimes it's just very small things, sometimes it's much larger things, but that just makes a big difference for a family that's struggling. So we try to do that because, if we can support the family, we support, our kids in the end. And that's what we're here to do.
Now, let's take a look at a few photos from Zuni, including one of a collaborative mural and two of children dancing after a recent summer camp. So, we are now on a video call with Tahlia Natachu of the Pueblo of Zuni in New Mexico. Tahlia is the Youth Development Coordinator for the Zuni Youth Enrichment Project, also called ZYEP. Talia, welcome. ZYEP offers so many creative children's activities: pottery and painting and running and dancing and a wonderful summer camp. I could go on and on, I'm sure, and I leave out most of them. Could you tell us a little bit more about ZYEP and its children's activities?
Definitely. So Zuni Youth Enrichment Project is something that is near and dear to my heart. We started back in 2009 when community members came together and wanted better for our Zuni youth. We knew that they needed healthy, positive spaces to be connected to their culture and with each other. And so that's how ZYP came about. And I was actually one of the very first counselors at that, I think the second summer camp. And so that was life changing for myself because it shaped my view of what I was going to do in the future. And it showed me that there are community members outside of my immediate family that care about me and want me to do well. And that connection to community and culture is what has gotten me to where I am today. And so I'm very proud to say that I'm a part of the ZYEP team and that ZYEP helped raise me. So if that helps you understand the type of love that we're coming from, that's what we're all about, is just making sure that we care for our kids and that they're connected to their culture so that we can grow into strong and healthy adults and continue our Zuni ways of life. And so, like you had mentioned, we offer year-round programming, Zuni ways of knowing, being, speaking, always at the center. We work with many, many different community partners and amazing funders to make sure that we can continue to provide these services. In the photos before, the collaborative mural with one of our amazing community partners. Her name is Mallory Kotowski. She is an artist. She is working at in the healthcare field. She's just an amazing partner to ZYEP. And we asked her, do you want to help us offer a Zuni middle school elective during the pandemic? Our students were doing virtual learning at that time. And we knew that we needed to step up. And so we asked her, reached out, and she said, of course, yes, because she really cares about our youth and their health. And so she used her talents of being an artist and also her knowledge of just mental health and awareness to kind of create this class where we were teaching skills of painting. We were doing this project together, but during during the painting sessions, we were having conversations about mental health and how to take care of yourself, and then our history as Zuni people and how our traditions are so rich and how we should be proud of that identity. And so she basically told the students, I have this idea. I'm going to paint this mural and you all are going to be a part of it. But the thing is, we all can't come meet at Holt One Park here and paint it together. We have to stay safe during this pandemic. And something that is really healing for us as Zuni people is that our ability to come together and to celebrate, especially during our ceremonies, that's what's really important to us. And that's what keeps us strong and going. And the pandemic definitely took a toll on us when we weren't able to do that the ways that we were used to. And so this was another way that we wanted our kids to kind of come together in a safe way. They painted little kind of like canvases that portrayed what they wanted their Zuni community to know. They were painting things that showed their strength and their resilience. And so we're painting these separate pieces on Zoom. And then myself and other ZYEP staff would drive around and we pick up their pieces and we come back here, disinfect and everything, and we handed them over to Mallory. And Mallory then took all those separate pieces and incorporated them into her overall mural. And it's as you all saw, you can see how her the pieces all are just woven seamlessly into the mural.
Things are different, but the same. And this has come up in conversations with other artists and people at Zuni, just as we saw in the mural. Um, a lot of times when people are outside a particular tradition, they sort of imagine that everything needs to remain static in that tradition to be true. But I think what you've shown is that things can change, they can be innovative, they can be creative, and yet at the base, they can be absolutely the same. One of your other artists said, then the things that you hold dear will continue. Not just the outward form, but the inner form of all of these activities. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. We have so many community partners. We have advisory committees that we work with, and we're always having to talk about the ways that our life is changing in the contemporary world. We cannot continue to do things just as they were, the way that our ancestors did, just like exactly the way that that they had done things. It's not possible these days. But what is possible is to make sure that that foundation, that value, the sense of what we are trying to accomplish through those traditions and those ceremonies, that can remain true to this day. The ways in which we get to that will shift and will adapt and will be resilient to make sure that we can get to that center of what we're searching for. So for sure, I think a good example of that was our summer camp. Summer camp is a tradition for ZYEP. ZYEP, that's how we started. And during the 2020 summer camp, we did a completely safe at home summer camp where we were delivering items to our kids. That was not traditional. But what we tried to do was still stay true to the foundation of what we were doing. We wanted our kids to be healthy. We wanted ways to our kids to connect to their culture. And in this sense, we made it possible for kids to connect to their family, because our community connection, that was a bit of a struggle. But in this sense, with last year's summer camp, the kids got to show their families, like, this is what I'm doing in summer camp. And that's how that connection came. And then into this year's summer camp, we went back to in person. We were so happy for that. We missed the kids so much. And of course, it still wasn't the same. We didn't have the giant gatherings. We had tiny pods. Everybody was wearing masks. We were constantly disinfecting and washing hands. And even the activities were a little different. But we still connected our kids to positive role models. We still connected kids to their traditions, and we still made sure kids were staying active and healthy during that entire time. So I totally agree with you, Stephanie.
Well, could you tell us a little bit about the STEM activities? STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, I believe. You did STEM activities, but at summer camp, but you connected them very clearly to Zuni models, Zuni meanings, um, in reference to those activities. Could you tell us a little bit more about them?
So STEM is also something pretty new to us. We're trying to diversify our activities so that we can gauge all the students' interests and things. And so we worked with, again, awesome ZYEP partners, Christine Juarez and Noreen Lonasi, and they worked together. Christine kind of brought that contemporary curriculum of like STEM, and we made the themes of solar and lunar. So they did 2 weeks of solar activities and 2 weeks of lunar activities. And for us in Zuni, the sun and the moon are so important. The moon definitely guides our cultural calendar. And so when we would give the kids education around solar things, they were making solar ovens and like sundials and things like that. Noreen would then come and provide the cultural education of how that's connected to us as people. And it was pretty cool to see the kids kind of get that click, like, whoa, our ancestors were scientists way before scientists were cool.
And certainly the surveys that you did at the end of summer camp, where you surveyed the kids, the counselors, the parents, and so on, showed it was just like a giant round of applause for the camp. Kids felt healthier, happier, connected to wonderful, confident, enthusiastic mentors.
We were very, very proud of that. And again, we cannot do any of these things without all our community partners and just everyone that has connections to ZYEP, all the support from, Zuni. We're invested in Zuni and they believe in us as well. And so I think those were 3 areas that we were very proud of, especially coming out of a pandemic, because having to stay at home in front of a laptop, our kids were not getting as much physical activity as they were before. And so to see those increases there, we're very happy. We all know how much of a toll the pandemic took on our mental health. So to see kids were their increasement in happiness, like that was also amazing. And then after a year and a half of being separated from people, that connection to a positive role model, we just couldn't be happier. That's exactly what we wanted to see.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Tahlia Natachu from the Pueblo of Zuni and the Zuni Youth Enrichment Project.
Thank you.
I'll now read an excerpt from my book, American Apartheid. In it, you'll learn more about the unbreakable bond between Indigenous children and their homelands. This continues despite more than a century of beatings and cruelty handed out in the boarding schools we learned about earlier this afternoon. As I read, you will see photographer Joseph Zumo's images of the Western Shoshone homeland. Joseph Hawley and his grandson sat side by side in canvas camp chairs. We were in a small valley hugged by rolling hills, part of a Western Shoshone sacred landscape called Dosui. A carpet of golden grasses and gray-green sagebrush stretched to craggy mountains on the horizon. In their left palms, Holly and his grandson each held a piece of rough black stone resting on a small leather pad, and in their right hands, a length of deer antler. More tribal members had set up camp nearby and were chatting, cooking, and watching the pair work. A jackrabbit hopped by, heads turned. Breakfast, someone said. Mule deer dashed into the distance. Granddad was teaching 7-year-old Julius flint knapping, which refers to chipping stone in order to fashion it into useful objects. For many centuries, knappers worldwide have turned out arrowheads, spear points, blades, hide scrapers, drills, sewing tools, cooking utensils, and other items. By participating in his people's stoneworking tradition, Julius was learning lessons that were cultural as well as practical. Because Julius was a beginner, the pair was working with obsidian, a shiny black stone that is more brittle and easier to work than the chert that is so plentiful in this landscape. Chert's extreme hardness made it their ancestors' favorite material, but that also means it is better handled by experienced makers. And, because obsidian is not available in Dosui, the flakes they left behind would not be mistaken for ancient workings. When Holly finished his arrowhead, he made a tiny fishhook and one more arrowhead, which snapped. He then said, quote, "As a child, when I sat flint knapping with my dad, he would counsel patience. As you work a piece of stone, you learn its characteristics, its hard places and weak places. You treat it with respect, and prayer goes into every stroke." The attention to detail means an experienced flint knapper can find an old arrowhead and read the intentions of the ancestral maker. Quote, "I can see what the person, who may have been male or female, was thinking by the way the stone is fractured, the choices made, the final form, the desire for perfection," Holly said. Creating points was traditionally altruistic and community-oriented as well as meditative, according to Holly's late father, Glenn, a celebrated Western Shoshone activist. Quote, "My dad told me a point might save your life, feed you, or clothe you, or you might store it in a cache somewhere in the landscape to save for another time. If someone else found it first, it saved his life or fed and clothed his family." "Where you learn is important as what you learn," said Holly. That day, Julius was sitting at camp in his people's sacred landscape, surrounded by his relatives. Everything around him and his grandfather informed their work as they shaped the rock. The jests, the stories, the aroma of cooking meat, the plants, the animals, the nearby sweat lodge, the easygoing lesson, and the tactile interaction with the stone. Holly said, quote, "When Western Shoshone children flint knap here at Dosui, they might see an old dwelling off to one side, a stream where ceremonies took place, and flakes chipped off by ancestors when they worked stone. The children can then look at our modern camp and see that it reflects the old one, with places to sleep, cook, gather, work, and pray. The children understand that they are part of the entire story." Thank you, Julie, Tahlia, and our viewers for joining us. This videocast and last week's are posted on Staten Island Out Loud's Facebook page. Please sign on to next week's videocast anytime after it's posted to the page at noon Eastern Time, Sunday, October 10th. The speakers will be Barb and O.J. Siemens, the Rosebud Sioux co-directors of Four Directions Voting Rights Group. They will tell us about 2 decades of supporting access to the ballot box and participation in our democracy for the nation's Indigenous people. They'll also tell us about their exciting new projects and affiliations. See you then.